Ethan lived alone in a quiet corner of the city. His apartment was not big and not fancy, but it was his place of peace where he spent most of his days working on projects that very few people understood. To the outside world, he looked like an ordinary young man with little money and no special position. To those who knew him well, he was something else. He had the kind of mind that never stopped building and never stopped asking questions. He liked to turn broken machines into working devices and scraps into something useful. The year was not far in the future, but the world had already changed. Humanity had entered the age of contact. Alien races from across the stars had revealed themselves, not in invasion or war, but in diplomacy. They had seen that humanity had reached a level where it was impossible to ignore. Earth was noisy in the skies with radio signals, satellites, and space probes. The aliens had decided it was time for humans to know they were not alone. At first, the news shook the planet. Fear spread quickly, then wonder followed. Within a few years, alien visitors walked openly in human cities. They did not look all the same. Some were tall and elegant with skin like stone. Some were short with wide, bright eyes. Others had shapes that were hard to describe. Yet all of them came with promises of peace and exchange. Humanity would share culture and knowledge, and in return the aliens would do the same. One of the programs set up by the Interstellar Council was called the Companion Exchange. It was simple in design. A human would be paired with an alien, and the alien would live in the human's home for a set period of time. The alien would serve as a guide, assistant, and observer. In some ways, they were like caretakers, but the council used the word Maid for translation because it sounded familiar in human languages. Many humans laughed at the name, but the aliens accepted it. They believed humans were fragile and often needed help. Ethan was chosen for the program, not because he was rich or powerful, but because his name came up in the lottery. He did not expect it, and at first he was not sure if he should accept. He liked his privacy and he liked to work alone, but curiosity won. He agreed, thinking maybe it would be interesting to meet someone from another world. The day of arrival came. Ethan stood by the door of his apartment waiting. He had cleaned a little, though not too much, because he wanted to look natural. He wondered what kind of alien would appear. Would it be tall and proud like those he had seen on the news, or small and delicate like the ones who walked in markets? The knock came softly, followed by a chime that was not from any doorbell he owned. Ethan opened the door and saw her standing there. Her name was Zira. She was from a race called the Calirians, known for their sharp features and strong sense of order. She was tall, with pale skin that carried a faint pattern like flowing lines across her arms. Her eyes were wide and silver, reflecting light in a way no human eyes did. She wore a simple uniform provided by the council, a mix of white and blue that marked her role as a companion. Her face carried no smile, only the calm look of someone on official duty. "I am Zyra of the Calirian people," she said in clear English, though her accent sounded slightly musical. "I have been assigned as your maid for the exchange program. May I enter?" Ethan nodded, unsure how to act. "Of course. Come in." She stepped inside and looked around the apartment with slow eyes. Her expression was hard to read. To her, the place was small and filled with strange human objects, yet she kept her thoughts quiet. She carried a small device that recorded everything she saw, sending reports back to her people. Ethan tried to be polite. "It's not much, but it's home." Zira turned her gaze to him. "It is enough. My role is simple. I will help maintain order in this place. I will also observe your daily life. You may continue as normal, and I will make sure you are not in need." Ethan almost laughed. "Not in need? I've been doing fine on my own." She tilted her head. "Humans often believe they are fine. Yet my people say you are fragile and unskilled. We are here to guide you." Ethan smiled slightly, but did not argue. He knew words would not change her mind. She would have to see for herself. He walked toward his workbench in the corner of the room. It was covered with wires, metal pieces, and small glowing parts he had been working on since morning. To him it was nothing unusual. To Zira it looked like chaos. "What is this mess?" she asked, her tone sharp. "This," Ethan said, picking up a piece of metal shaped like a small cylinder, "is my current project." She frowned. "You should not waste your time with scraps. Humans are not trained for such things. You risk harming yourself." Ethan ignored the remark and began connecting two wires. Sparks flickered and a soft hum filled the air. Zyra's eyes widened slightly. She leaned closer, curious despite herself. "What are you doing?" she asked. I'm building a power core, Ethan said. Not just any core. A compact fusion unit. Her jaw tightened almost as if she thought he was joking. Impossible. Even my people take decades of training to construct such devices. You are a human with no advanced tools. Do not speak foolishness. Ethan did not look up. He continued working with calm hands, twisting the wires, attaching the cylinder and making adjustments with a small handmade tool. The hum grew steadier. A faint blue light shone from the device. Zira stepped back in disbelief. This cannot be real. It's real enough, Ethan said, finally glancing at her. It's not finished, but it works. The design is mine. I started with scraps, studied the basics, and tried until it came together. Zira shook her head. No, your people are reckless. This is dangerous. You cannot succeed where trained engineers require entire facilities. Maybe not, Ethan said with a small grin, but we humans like to try. For the first time, Zira felt a crack in her certainty. She had come expecting to see weakness. Instead, she saw boldness and a strange kind of strength. She had been told humans were slow and clumsy. Yet here was one human making something her people would never imagine building with bare hands. She stood silently, her silver eyes fixed on the glowing core, and in that moment her first impression of humanity began to change. Zira had seen many things during her training as a Calirian companion. She had studied alien languages, learned the history of dozens of worlds, and memorized the rules of the exchange program. She had been told that humans were clever in small ways but not skilled in great sciences. They were described as curious children, reaching for tools they could not handle. The report said they needed supervision to prevent mistakes. Yet here she stood, watching Ethan put together a device that should have been far beyond his reach. The small cylinder on the workbench pulsed with a faint blue light. It was not dangerous yet, but the pattern of its energy was clear to Zira's trained eyes. She knew enough to recognize a fusion reaction in miniature form. It was weak and unstable, but it was real. The fact that a human could build such a thing in an ordinary apartment with simple tools went against everything she believed. She took a step closer, trying to hide her unease. You must explain this. Where did you learn such designs? Ethan wiped his hands on a cloth and looked at her with calm eyes. I learned from everything I could find. Books, digital files, old lectures. Some pieces I studied from open data shared by your council. The rest I worked out myself, Zira frowned. That is impossible. You cannot fill the gaps with guessing. Fusion engineering requires centuries of knowledge. Humans cannot simply invent missing parts, Ethan shrugged. Maybe not the way your people do it. But we humans like to take risks. We try, we fail, and we try again. Sometimes the guesses lead us forward. She stared at him. To her people, failure was shameful. Experiments were done only when every part was understood and safe. Yet here was a human treating failure as a tool. It unsettled her more than the glowing device itself. You are reckless, she said firmly. This is not how progress should be made. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe not for you, but it works for us. He set the cylinder back down and began sketching on a piece of paper. Zira expected a mess of random lines, but what she saw surprised her. His drawings were rough but full of purpose. He marked out coils, chambers, and containment fields, each placed with intention. It was not perfect, but it was real design. She leaned over the paper, her silver eyes scanning the lines. You are attempting magnetic containment with scrap metal? That is absurd. Absurd is just another word for something people have not seen yet, Ethan replied. He tapped the drawing. This design could work. It only needs refinement, Zira wanted to argue, but she felt a strange pull inside her. She wanted to see more. Against her training, against her orders, she found herself curious. She sat down across from him, folding her hands neatly. Show me how you built it. Step by step, Ethan raised an eyebrow but began to explain. He spoke simply, as if he were teaching a student. He described how he scavenged materials from broken machines, how he shaped coils from copper, how he balanced the reaction with small adjustments. His words were not full of technical jargon, yet they carried a clear logic. Zira followed closely, realizing she could understand more than she expected. Hours passed as he worked and explained. Zira corrected him once or twice, pointing out where his theory clashed with known science. But instead of dismissing her, Ethan welcomed the corrections and used them to test new ideas. She found herself engaged in the process. Her role had been to watch and judge. For the first time, Zira did not know what to say. Her people had told her humans were fragile, Yet this man was not fragile at all. He was daring. His hands were steady, his mind sharp, and his spirit unshaken by mistakes. He reminded her of something her own culture had forgotten long ago: the courage to try without fear of failure. That evening, as the sky outside darkened, Zira walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Humans moved below, unaware of the quiet breakthrough happening in this small apartment. She wondered how many more were like Ethan, hidden across Earth, working on ideas without waiting for permission. Ethan joined her by the window, his arms crossed. "You seem deep in thought." "I am reconsidering what I have been told," Zira admitted. "My people believe yours are not ready. But perhaps you are more ready than we think," Ethan chuckled. "We might not look ready, but we never stop moving. That is what scares the galaxy, isn't it? The fact that we move faster than the rules say we should." Zira glanced at him. "Perhaps my people will not believe me if I tell them this." "Then don't tell them yet," Ethan said calmly. "Stay and see for yourself first. If you still think it's nothing, then you can report it. But if you see what I see, maybe you'll understand why humans can't be measured by old standards." Zira turned back to the city lights, her thoughts heavy. She had come to Earth expecting to watch a weak species stumble. Instead, she found herself at the side of someone who might change everything. Late into the night, Ethan continued working, adjusting the core, testing circuits, writing notes. Zira did not leave his side. She asked questions, offered small suggestions, and sometimes only watched in silence. For the first time, she did not feel like a superior guide. She felt like a student. By morning, the device was stable enough to light a small lamp. Ethan connected the wires and the lamp glowed softly with energy from the miniature core. Zira's eyes widened again. It was not a grand machine, but it was proof. Proof that a human could touch the edge of power her people guarded closely. Ethan looked at her. "Not bad for a fragile species, right?" Zira did not answer at once. She simply stared at the glowing lamp, her silver eyes reflecting its light. At last she spoke, her voice quiet. "Perhaps fragile is not the right word. Perhaps fearless is better." In that moment, something changed between them. Zira no longer saw Ethan as a subject to watch over. She saw him as a partner in discovery, someone who could teach her as much as she could teach him. Her first impression was broken, and in its place grew respect. She knew her people would not accept this truth easily. But for now, she would keep watching. She would see how far this human could go, and deep inside, she felt a spark of excitement she had not felt in years. The days that followed moved in a rhythm that was new for both Ethan and Zira. Ethan kept working at his bench, shaping parts and drawing sketches, while Zira stayed near, sometimes watching in silence, sometimes offering quiet suggestions. At first she told herself she was only observing as part of her duty, but soon she realized she was truly involved. She wanted to see the device succeed. She wanted to learn how a human mind could leap so quickly from one idea to another. Ethan treated her as if she was a partner, not a superior. He never bowed to her authority, but he never dismissed her either. When she pointed out flaws in his math or mistakes in his wiring, he listened. When she questioned his methods, he explained without impatience. It was different from what Zira was used to. In her culture, those with higher status spoke and others obeyed. Here she felt like an equal, and that unsettled her even as it drew her closer. One evening, Ethan set down his tools and stretched. The room smelled of metal and faint ozone from the energy coils. The glowing core on the table pulsed steadily, brighter now than it had ever been. It could power more than a lamp. With more work, it might light the whole apartment. Zira stood with her arms folded, her silver eyes fixed on the core. "If this were seen by my council, they would not believe it," she said. "Then don't tell them yet," Ethan replied. "Let's keep it between us for now." Her gaze shifted to him. "Why keep it secret? If humans can do this, should it not be shared?" Ethan leaned back against the wall. "Because if we show it too early, it might be destroyed. Some species out there don't want us to advance this fast. They think we should crawl instead of run, but we're not good at crawling." Zira's lips pressed into a thin line. She knew he was right. Her own people, the Calirians, often spoke in private about the danger of humanity rising too quickly. They respected order and slow growth. Humanity's wild leaps troubled them. If they saw what Ethan had built, they would call it reckless, maybe even dangerous enough to suppress. She turned back to the glowing cylinder. "My assignment is to observe and report. If I withhold this from my people, I break the rules. Ethan met her eyes. Maybe you should decide whether the rules are worth more than the truth. His words echoed in her mind long after he spoke them. Calirians valued discipline. They believed rules protected civilization. Yet Zira had begun to feel that the rules also trapped them, keeping them from discovering new paths. Watching Ethan work felt like watching a door open to a place her people had forgotten existed. That night, Zira recorded her daily report as she was required. Her device projected soft light across the room as she spoke into it. She described the apartment, the meals, the conversations. But when she reached the part where she should have mentioned the fusion core, she hesitated. Her voice caught in her throat. At last she said only, "The human continues his daily activities. Nothing unusual to report." She ended the record and turned the device off. Her hands trembled as she set it down. For the first time in her service, she had lied to her people. The next day, Ethan noticed her silence as she watched him. "Something on your mind?" he asked. Zira hesitated, then spoke. "I did not tell my council about your device. I broke the rules. I do not know why I did it." Ethan looked at her with calm eyes. "Maybe because you wanted to see what we could really do without interference." She nodded slowly. "Yes, but if they find out, I will face consequences." He smiled faintly. "That's another thing about humans. We take risks not just for ourselves, but for others. You're starting to understand that." Zira looked at him carefully. She did not want to admit it, but she respected him more each day. His courage, his patience, his refusal to give up. These qualities pulled her in. She was beginning to feel something she had never expected: loyalty to a human. Over the next week, Ethan and Zira worked together to refine the core. Ethan's hands shaped the parts, while Zira used her knowledge of alien science to suggest improvements. He listened to her ideas, then tested them in his own way. Sometimes his experiments failed and sparks filled the room, but he only laughed and tried again. Zira found herself laughing with him, something she rarely did among her own people. One evening, they succeeded in stabilizing the core enough to power multiple devices. The hum filled the apartment with steady energy. The lights glowed brighter, the air system ran smoother, and even the old cooking unit worked as if it were new. Ethan raised his hands in triumph. "It works," he said with joy. "We did it." Zira allowed herself a small smile. "We did." But even in their moment of success, worry lingered in her heart. She knew her silence would not last forever. The council would expect proof, and if they discovered she had hidden such a thing, her honor would be in question. 2 days later, her fears proved true. Her communication device blinked with an urgent signal. She activated it, and the holographic face of her superior appeared. His features were sharp and proud, his eyes stern. "Zira," he said in the formal Calirian tongue, "we have received reports that some humans are attempting advanced technologies. Tell us what you have seen. Has your subject shown unusual behavior?" Zira froze. Ethan, sitting at the bench, looked up at her. He could not hear the alien words, but he understood the tension. She opened her mouth, her heart racing. The rules told her to report the truth. Her loyalty to Ethan told her to stay silent. Finally, she spoke slowly. "No unusual behavior. The human is ordinary. He spends time with simple machines. Nothing more." Her superior studied her face, then nodded. "Continue observing. Report any change." The image vanished. Zira let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Ethan walked to her side. "You didn't tell them, did you?" She shook her head. "I couldn't. If they knew, they would take it from you. They would call it dangerous and forbid you from trying again." Ethan placed a hand gently on the table beside her, not touching her but close enough for her to feel his presence. "Thank you. That means more than you know." In that moment, Zira understood that she had crossed a line she could never step back from. She was no longer only an observer. She was part of something greater, something dangerous and wonderful. She was helping a human defy the limits set by the galaxy. The nights grew longer as they worked in secret. The core became more stable, more powerful. Ethan's designs grew sharper, and Zira's alien knowledge helped refine them. Together, they created something neither species could have built alone. Zira began to wonder if this was the future the council feared. Not a human rising alone, but a human and an alien working together, combining daring and discipline, invention and tradition. It was a partnership that could change the balance of power across the stars. As she watched Ethan adjust the humming core late one night, She felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had once thought humans were fragile. Now she saw them as something else entirely. They were dreamers. And dreamers, she realized, were far more dangerous than warriors. The sun rose over the city with soft golden light. From the window of his small apartment, Ethan could see the streets filling with people, cars moving slowly, and drones buzzing in the sky. It looked like an ordinary morning, but for him and Zira, it was not ordinary at all. This day would be remembered, because the Interstellar Council was sending a delegation to Earth. They wanted to see with their own eyes if humanity was ready for the next step. News of the visit had spread everywhere. Governments prepared speeches, scientists prepared demonstrations, and media crews prepared their cameras. But Ethan knew none of those displays would matter as much as what he and Zira had built together. Their small, glowing fusion core was more powerful than any words. If they could show it safely, it would change the opinion of the galaxy. Zira stood beside him, her face calm but her silver eyes full of thought. "You are certain you want to present it? The risk is great. If it fails, you will be laughed at. If it works, others may try to silence you." Ethan smiled faintly. "If we hide it, the world stays the same. If we show it, at least they will know what humans can do. Even if they try to stop us, they will not forget." Her gaze softened, though her voice stayed firm. "Then we must be ready for interference. My people will not want this displayed. They will call it reckless. They may even try to prevent it," he nodded. "I figured as much. But we'll handle it. We always do." The following days became a blur of preparation. Ethan adjusted every coil and every wire of the device. Zira checked each part with her scanner, making sure the energy remained stable. Together they rehearsed what to say, how to explain the design, how to prove it was safe. They worked until their hands shook from exhaustion, but neither wanted to stop. On the eve of the demonstration, Zira received another urgent call from her council. Her superior appeared again in a sharp holographic image. His tone was colder this time. "Zira, we hear rumors that humans will attempt to show advanced energy at the delegation meeting. If such a thing happens, you are to stop it. Do you understand?" Her chest tightened. "Why stop it? If they succeed, would that not prove humanity's worth?" "Success is not the question," he said sharply. "Their attempts are unstable. If they continue to leap without caution, they may destroy themselves and others. We cannot allow this recklessness to spread." Sarah lowered her head, hiding her eyes. "I understand." The image vanished, leaving her in silence. Ethan had listened quietly from across the room. When she turned to him, she expected anger, but he only looked calm. "They told you to stop me, didn't they?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, they do not trust your way of progress. They think you will break more than you build." Ethan leaned forward on the workbench. "And what do you think?" Her silver eyes met his. "I think they fear what they cannot control. And I think you are not reckless. You are brave. But bravery is dangerous in a world that wants order." He smiled softly. "Then we'll just have to show them bravery has its place." The day of the delegation arrived. The city gathered in a great hall built for the event. Tall alien figures stood beside human leaders, their clothes shimmering with strange materials, their faces calm but distant. Media drones floated overhead, recording every movement. The air was heavy with expectation. Ethan and Zira carried the fusion core in a reinforced case. To the crowd, it looked like nothing more than a metal box, but inside was the heart of their secret. As they approached the stage, Ethan could feel eyes on him, human and alien alike. When his turn came, he stepped forward. The lights of the hall shone on him, and the voices of the audience grew quiet. Zira stood at his side, her presence strong and steady. "My name is Ethan," he said clearly. "I am not a leader or a scientist of rank. I am just a man who likes to build. With my own hands, with the help of a friend, I created something I believe proves what humanity is capable of." He opened the case. The small core pulsed with blue light, steady and calm. A murmur spread through the hall. Some aliens leaned forward in interest, others frowned in disbelief. "This is a compact fusion power source," Ethan continued. "It was built with common tools, not advanced machines. It is stable, and it can power much more than you think. This is proof that humans do not need centuries to move forward. We leap, we try, and when we fail, we rise again." The moment was powerful, but not safe. Zira noticed movement at the edge of the hall. A group of Calirian officials whispered together, their eyes fixed on the device. She felt a cold wave of fear. She knew what they planned. They would not allow this demonstration to succeed. Suddenly, the lights in the hall flickered. A surge passed through the systems. Ethan looked at Zyra quickly, understanding at once. "They're trying to disrupt it," she whispered. Ethan steadied the device, adjusting its controls with quick hands. The hum of the core wavered, but he did not panic. His fingers moved with confidence, twisting wires, resetting circuits, pushing the machine back into balance. The aliens on the council table watched closely. Some expected an explosion, others a collapse. But neither came. Slowly, the hum steadied again, and the blue glow returned stronger than before. Ethan lifted his head. "You can try to stop us," he said, his voice firm. "But humans don't give up that easily." The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some humans cheered, proud of his courage. Some aliens looked shaken, whispering among themselves. The Calirians who had tried to sabotage him stared with cold anger, but they could not deny what they had seen. Zyra stood tall beside him, her heart racing. She felt pride stronger than she had ever felt before. Pride not only in Ethan, but in herself, for choosing to stand with him. She had broken the rules of her people, but in this moment she knew it was worth it. The rest of the event passed in a blur. The council members asked questions, demanded explanations, and examined the core with scanning devices. Ethan answered simply, always calm, never defensive. Zyra added her knowledge when needed, bridging human daring with alien science. Together they made the impossible believable. When it was over, Ethan carried the core back into its case. The hall emptied slowly, leaving behind echoes of whispers and tension. Outside, the city lights glowed brighter than ever, as if celebrating the small victory. Back at the apartment, Zyra finally allowed herself to breathe deeply. She turned to Ethan, her voice soft but firm. "You showed them more than a machine today. You showed them the spirit of your people. They will not forget it." Ethan sat down, weary but smiling. "Maybe they won't, and maybe that's enough." Zyra looked at him carefully. She had once thought her duty was to guide and correct him. Now she knew her true duty was something else, to stand beside him as he carried humanity forward. As the night grew quiet, she thought about the future. The council would not give up trying to control humanity. The galaxy would not welcome reckless dreamers easily. But Zyra had seen enough to believe that humans could not be stopped. They were fearless, and fearlessness, she realized, was the one power greater than rules. The day after the demonstration, Ethan and Zyra woke to a city that felt different. Even from his small apartment window, Ethan could see people moving with a renewed energy. News reports streamed across every device, showing the brief but remarkable display of the compact fusion core. Humans were talking, and more importantly, aliens were talking. Zyra, standing beside him, felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension. Her people, the Calirians, had not expected humans to succeed. Their delegation had gone silent after the demonstration, likely debating how to respond. For her part, Zyra felt a new responsibility. She had already broken rules by keeping the project secret, but now she knew that what they had done mattered far more than obedience. Ethan sipped his morning drink, eyes on the glowing skyline. "Looks like they're still thinking about it," he said casually. "They are," Zyra replied, "and I doubt they will ever forget it. Even my council will have to admit your achievement." Ethan leaned back, stretching his arms. "I hope so. But even if they don't, at least we know humans can do more than they expected. That alone is enough for me." For Zyra, those words carried more weight than the news. She had spent so long believing humans were fragile, cautious, and limited, but now she saw them differently. They were daring, inventive, and full of a courage that could not be measured by centuries of tradition. Ethan was the living example of that spirit. In the following days, her council did not reach out immediately. Zyra suspected they were discussing how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, humans began experimenting with similar energy devices in small labs inspired by the news reports. Rumors spread that a single human had proven it could be done without massive alien infrastructure. The galaxy slowly was beginning to notice Earth. Zyra and Ethan continued working quietly in the apartment. They refined the core, making it more stable and more powerful. Zyra's knowledge of alien containment and energy management complemented Ethan's creativity perfectly. Together, they discovered small improvements that neither could have achieved alone. One evening, as they tested a new adjustment, the core hummed steadily, glowing a brilliant blue. Ethan looked at Zyra and smiled. "We did it again. This version is stronger, safer, and more efficient." Zira's silver eyes reflected the light. Yes, and now even if my council tries to stop humans, they cannot ignore the evidence. You have changed how they see your people. Ethan laughed softly. It's funny, isn't it? I never wanted to impress anyone outside this apartment. I just wanted to build something new. Zira stepped closer. Sometimes the small things are the most powerful. One device, one idea, one human. Sometimes that is enough to change the galaxy. Their partnership had grown beyond invention. They had become friends, then collaborators, and finally allies. Zira had once thought she would simply guide and observe, but now she felt a shared mission. Ethan was not just proving human potential. He was showing the galaxy what courage and curiosity could do. Weeks passed, and eventually the Calirian Council reached out again. This time the tone was different. A high-ranking official contacted Zira directly, asking for a demonstration of the Corps' capabilities and a full report. He spoke cautiously, a hint of respect in his voice. Zira hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She turned to Ethan. It's time. They want proof and we cannot refuse. Ethan adjusted his glasses and carried the Corps to a secure demonstration table. Zira activated her scanners, ready to provide data and explanations. When the council officials arrived via hologram, their expressions were formal, yet the sharpness of their eyes betrayed their astonishment. Zira spoke first, explaining the principles and methods used to build the Corps. Then Ethan added the human perspective, describing the trial and error process, the creativity, and the persistence that made the project possible. Together, they presented not just the machine, but the spirit behind it. As the Corps powered the demonstration equipment flawlessly, a silence fell over the audience. The aliens could not deny what they saw. The blue glow pulsed steadily, stable and powerful. Even the most skeptical Calirians leaned forward in acknowledgement. Finally, the head of the delegation spoke. This is remarkable. Not only is the device functional, but the ingenuity behind it is beyond expectation. We have underestimated humans. Clearly, they are capable of more than we imagined. Zira allowed herself a small smile. She had always believed in the rules, but this moment made her realize that courage and intelligence were equally important. Humans had a kind of power that could not be measured in centuries of study or careful planning. It was raw, fearless, and creative. Ethan looked at Zira and whispered, "Looks like your people finally see what we're capable of." She nodded. "Yes, and I am proud to have been part of it." Over the next few weeks, recognition grew. Other alien species began reaching out to humans for collaborations. Scientists, engineers, and students received invitations to exchange programs. Humanity's reputation began to rise not because of aggression or conquest, but because of courage, curiosity, and the willingness to try what others considered impossible. Through it all, Ethan and Zira continued to work together. Their bond had deepened into mutual respect and friendship. Zira had learned much from Ethan about daring, imagination, and the value of failure. Ethan had learned from Zira about precision, discipline, and seeing beyond immediate results. They had found a balance between human creativity and alien experience, a partnership that made each stronger. One evening, as the city lights twinkled below, Zira looked out the window and reflected on the journey. She remembered the first day she had entered the apartment, expecting to see weakness. Instead, she had seen brilliance. She remembered the first hum of the Corps, the first sparks, the first moments of doubt, and she remembered the decision she had made to protect that work, to support it, and to stand beside the human who dared to dream. Ethan joined her, carrying a small tray of drinks. He set it down on the table and leaned against the wall. "You've been quiet," he said. "Thinking about the future?" Zira nodded. "Yes, and I realize that humans are not fragile. They are persistent, fearless, and full of ideas that others cannot predict. Today the galaxy sees it, but I have seen it all along." Ethan smiled, raising his glass. "Then here's to seeing the impossible and making it real." Zira clinked her glass against his. "And to the future, whatever it may hold." The two of them stood together, watching the city lights and imagining what could come next. They knew that challenges would continue. The galaxy was vast, full of species who would test humanity in many ways. But now, they also knew that humanity could rise to meet those challenges. They could invent, they could create, and they could inspire. And Zira knew one thing more than anything else. Standing with Ethan, watching a human defy expectations, she had discovered a truth her people had not taught her. Strength was not measured by power alone, but by the courage to try, the ability to learn, and the willingness to protect what mattered most. Ethan looked at her, a small grin on his face. "Do you ever regret joining this program?" Zara shook her head, her silver eyes warm. "Never. I came to guide a human. I stayed to learn from one, and I think the galaxy is better for it." As night settled over the city, the hum of the fusion core glowed softly in the apartment. It was not just a machine. It was proof. Proof that humanity could dream, that humans could create, and that courage could change the galaxy. And Zyra, once a stranger from the stars, now stood beside a human who had shown her the impossible. Together, they had rewritten what it meant to be human. The stars outside twinkled quietly, as if acknowledging their achievement. And for the first time in history, Earth felt truly part of the galaxy, not as a timid planet, but as a world of daring dreamers, guided by courage, creativity, and heart.